Right here like this?
What's up?
This is okay like
Yeah,
this?
you're good.
We got the crescent wrench all fixed.
Yeah, I did that.
I appreciate
the other
that.
week.
That's going the extra mile.
He's the best.
Good kid.
Yeah.
Well, you can hustle makes the ball club. Victoria wrote this.
No, she
Jingle.
didn't.
Jingle.
The music part.
No, that was all Vinny. He surprised me with this. Vinny Romano. Do you know Vinny?
Just get this closer to you. No, that's good. Nice.
You choose.
And now it's time for a power hour from America's trusted resource for everything real estate. Everything in the real estate industry is
I feel like being upbeat today. I'm going to be upbeat.
Are you upbeat?
Yes.
the Real Estate Revolution with your host, Victoria Rivadeneira, and her co-host, Scott Forcino. Welcome to the Real Estate Revolution.
Good evening and happy Monday. I'm Victoria Rivadeneira, president of the Northeast Division for Exit Realty Corp International, and I've been in the real estate business for about 25 years. I'm also a New York State licensed real estate broker and a member of the National Association of Realtors, as well as many other industry associations. And I am here in the WFAS studio, aka the Man Cave, with my co-host Scott Forcino. How you doing today,
Great.
Scott?
Good evening. I'm happy to be here. We have,
What's our topic today?
well, we don't have death, but we have taxes. The only two certainties in life, and these are the property taxes. I know their audience is going to be really excited to hear why they exist, why they must be paid, in what order, the consequences for failure, how to reduce them, and how they are treated at closing. So I'm going to introduce John Noto. John was a partner in a family of real estate valuation and consultant firm for over 20 years. He was the director of real property tax services in Rockland County for 9 years, and during his time as a director, he advised, trained, and counseled assessors, local government officials, school district officials in all areas of property tax. Annually, John trained the boards of assessment review for each of Rockland's 5 towns, and he served in several statewide committees discussing various aspects of the real property tax system in New York. He's an expert, and he's a graduate of St. Thomas Aquinas College, receiving a BS in finance. And that's not BS, that's true. So, well, a big topic is taxes here, and we're sitting in Westchester, and Victoria reminded me that this is the seat of the highest property taxes in America. And I'm the only resident of it.
Westchester County is the highest taxes across the country. In fact, there was a house that recently went on the market in Purchase, New York. You probably know about this. And the taxes were $117,000.
I'm not surprised. Purchase is amongst the highest, and so is Bronxville. They're over 6 figures in a lot of cases.
Yeah, now they're not all like that, but you know, we do average about 5 times more than everywhere else. And I was telling this to John earlier, and he said that $117,000 is not the highest he's ever heard in Westchester County.
That's correct. On the waterfront, it could be double that, depending on the size of the property.
Wow, that's really crazy. But like I said, they're not all like that, right? So what brings our taxes so high in Westchester County? Is it school system, value of homes?
It's
what is
a
it?
compilation of a whole number of forces. You have school districts that have tremendous budgets. You have police departments. You've had a large government that consumes a lot of your tax dollars.
And you said Rockland is the second.
Rockland is number 2, and between the two, we have the dubious distinction of paying more property tax than Beverly Hills, California.
Wow.
Now, would you say that that's due in some part to those are the closest to New York City, Westchester, and then Rockland?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of value in our real estate here, but again, your property taxes, what we're going to talk about is how they come about. And when a municipality takes their budget and they establish a budget, they find out where all the sources of revenue is going to come in to the municipality, and if the budget's $10 million and they expect to get $8 million in revenue from all other sources, and they're left with $2 million that they need to recoup, that falls upon your property tax base. and that's where it comes from. So, that depending on what the budget is and what the estimated revenues are, will dictate what your property tax levy is going to be, and then based on your value of your home, because it's an ad valorem tax, that really
What does ad valorem mean?
according to value.
Got
So it's considered a fair and equitable tax because people are taxed according to the value of the home. So if your home is $200,000, you pay X, and if you're $400,000, theoretically it should be 2 times X.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a bunch of questions, but Victoria, you had
Well,
some
I have some
information?
fun facts that you just
Okay.
jumped right over because I know you love them so much.
let's
But you
go.
mentioned New York City, and rumor has it that Madison Square Garden in New York City has not paid property taxes since 1982. Are you aware of that, Scott?
Not at all. Is that the what is the most famous arena in all
It is
sports?
the most famous arena in sports. Oh, I consider it
tie
a
that in.
music arena.
Right, right.
Because I
No, it's
really
both.
gravitate toward music.
And how many
as
times
you know.
has Billy Joel played there?
Yes,
you know?
many times.
About 65.
Yes, many times.
He sold out. He sold out 21 shows in a row right now.
Yeah, and he's
Wow.
and my
Yeah.
brother actually graduated
Nice.
the police academy in Madison Square Garden. For people that don't know that.
Very nice. And they have not paid their taxes since 1982. Do you know why?
Refusal? No.
Because James.
Because there was a 10-year tax abatement that was inadvertently made perpetual due to a clerical error.
Nice. I'm
you
happy that they
imagine?
took advantage of that.
Yeah. So that has already cost New York City and has saved Madison Square Garden about $300 million. So this is rumor. I don't have a real source to that. John, are you aware of any of this?
Just talking before and knowing that to correct that, they have a resolution. The city council has passed the resolution to send the correction up to Albany, and it's up to the Albany lawmakers to remove that exemption to, start forcing them to pay their fair share.
And how come they haven't done that since 1982?
That is a very good question, and one for the city council.
Well, they're relying on the I guess the codicil within that agreement, and that sounds like a lawsuit to me. Well, why would something that they agree to in principle have any legislature be able to touch that?
Mm-hmm.
But stay tuned for that filing of an index number.
All right. Well, we'll pick that up another time, right? All right. So let's talk about property tax. So what is it? Let's really dive in. What is it? What is it used for?
Well, property tax is used for local, property tax, first of all, is a local tax, and it's used for local purposes. So a school is a tax levying body, and they issue a tax to pay for school purposes. The state, everybody says state and county tax. The state has nothing to do with property tax. They don't collect it, they don't receive it. It's for county purposes. It can be used for the sewer districts, the lighting districts, the ambulance, the fire, water districts, and general municipal, administration of your county or your town. That's what it's there for, and it's the reason we have it is because it's the most consistent base that the government can draw from, where income tax can go up and down, and the gas tax that's in gasoline can go up and down depending on use. Property tax is always consistent. We know what our property tax base is, our assessment base. So the government always is assured that if they need to get that extra $2 million that we were talking about before, they know they're going to be able to get it from the property tax base.
Now you said that they're consistent, but the assessments themselves are not consistent, and they are often very different than the current market value of a home. So how do they determine that, and why are they so different?
Within each municipality, the assessor's job is to go out and put a value on each property. So when they do that, they have to evaluate the whole municipality at one time. It's called a reval. And when they do the reval, they come up with a value for an individual property, and that assessment is static in time. So for example, in Rockland County and Clarkstown, the last reval was done in 1985. So all the assessments are from 1985, and what they do is to equalize that, to bring it up to market value. They have a ratio, and they divide that ratio by the assessment to come up with what they feel market value is. And when our assessments in Westchester specifically has had municipalities that haven't had a reval in 50 years, and their assessments are really indefensible. So the equalization rates that they come up with are usually not defendable. The state comes up with an equalization rate. by the sales. They compare the sales, the current sales, and divide it by what the equalization rate is, and they come up with a value.
Is that why we have an equalization assessment form, the E&A, at transactions?
Yes, exactly right. That is specifically what goes up in the Equalization and Assessment Division up in Albany, looks at those for each different type of class of property, and that is how the equalization rate comes up. Exactly right.
Okay, well, I mean, the consumer's, I guess, biggest opportunity to be involved with real property tax, I guess, through their monthly payment, at their mortgage, right? If that's, and if you come across people who've, I guess, either have paid their own escrows, or if it's not part of a loan, I mean, what happens in that case? If let's say they're in a foreclosure and they're not paying their mortgage and therefore not making any payments, what happens to the taxes if no payments are being made?
If no payments are being made, you'll continually get reminders and delinquent notices from the municipality. In Westchester, it's a little bit different. Each municipality collects their own taxes. In Rockland County, in most counties throughout New York, the county is going to be the collecting entity, the lien enforcing entity. So in Westchester, it's a municipality. And typically, the law is 24 months of delinquent taxes will start what is called the in rem proceeding, which is a foreclosure proceeding for real property tax.
And that's a separate type of foreclosure just for tax payments
tax,
purposes?
Right, because the property tax is what's considered a priority lien. So it comes before.
So that gets paid first?
That gets paid first.
Huh, so that's superior to that of your bank loan from, let's say, Wells Fargo?
That's correct. The bank will be also notified of the delinquency in the property tax payment so that they have the opportunity to satisfy the lien. And in effect, what they'll do is they'll not allow that non-escrow loan to be non-escrow any longer, and they'll escrow it to make sure that their loan is protected.
Or pay it?
Yeah,
it'll get
typically
paid,
they won't
yes.
pay it, right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
well, they'll have to pay it to protect their interest in the property.
I mean, this, I guess, we're touching on the good and the normal, and that's the bad side of the tax situation. Can we touch on another aspect that I think people are interested in is the STAR, the program, the Enhanced STAR. I don't know the age for those people who qualify for Enhanced.
Right. Or any type of exemption.
Any type of exemption, I guess, veterans.
And
So
how do they qualify, right?
Well, there's several. The exemption code is hundreds and hundreds of pages thick, and there's several different types of exemption. The STAR is the School Tax Relief Act, and there's different levels of that. The basic STAR, everybody's entitled to unless you make over a certain number, and I think that's $500,000.
And it has to be on your primary residence. Right?
Exactly right. And if you have a secondary residence and you claim it in both places, that's a felony. It's a penalty.
It's fraud.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and there's a monetary penalty as well, punitive. So the senior exemption is for people of a certain age that hit a certain income requirement, and it's a big reduction and worth looking into. All exemptions have to be filed by March 1st, and that's where a lot of people.
Is that only in New York or everywhere?
It's in New York.
Okay.
In New York, we're talking about New York.
So every
real
state
property
has a
tax.
different.
That's exactly
Okay.
right. Yep. And so, especially with seniors, we always try to remind them that in February to make sure that they have their exemption forms in so they don't miss it, because if they miss it, they're paying the full freight of the tax.
And for how long is that full freight, as you say? Is it a yearly? I mean, will it stay that way forever, or if they miss it, how long does that relief last?
The basic STAR is going to stay on the property until ownership changes. The senior exemption, the senior STAR, is an annual exemption that has to be filed every year.
That's a good point.
Because
that's good to know.
if the senior passes away or moves, then that exemption has to be removed for the ensuing owner.
I bet a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I knew that, but you know who don't know that? And I say don't in plural, realtors don't know that, because they'll list a property as an estate, the person is deceased, and of course, that's not the correct.
Right, they're using the wrong tax.
Right.
Yeah.
It can't be right. And then, you have a greater interest. Oh, look at that property with lower taxes. Well, it's not accurate, and that's why at a closing or in preparation of a closing, they get the accurate. They do a continuation search, and then someone is, walloped with this higher tax bill, and for no fault of their own, they didn't know that.
Right.
So that's interesting, and
All right, so let's talk about the actual assessment. So
that's important.
there's a lot of people that really want to know, how do I appeal this assessment? I think I'm
You mean the
paying
grievance process?
Yeah, the grievance process. How do you go about doing that?
Okay, so there's a procedure to follow, and the first one, believe it or not, is to actually have a conversation with your assessor. And you look at it and you say, Mr. or Mrs. Assessor, I feel I'm overassessed and here's my case. And typically, the assessor is going to say, my number's right,
Mm-hmm.
file a grievance.
Well, what would that individual's quote-unquote case be based on? An appraisal? Do they pay for an appraisal?
It can be. It can be based on a
Comps.
sales price. It can be
Well, we
based on
saw a
comps.
lot of that when the market dropped.
Certainly, and the towns were hurting because they lost a lot of
That's right.
tax revenue because of the reduction in value. But so around here, I know a lot of lawyers do it. So
Mhm.
do you? No offense to the lawyers that may be listening. Do you need a lawyer for this?
Absolutely not. You only need a lawyer if, in two circumstances.
When do you ever need a lawyer?
Well, I know there's just some form of hearing.
There's the Board of Assessment Review. They hear
Mhm.
every case, and whether it's a single-family home, or one, two, or three-family home, or other types of properties, all other types of properties fall under a different set of rules. But the second process is to file your grievance with the Board of Assessment Review, and if you are denied, then there's two avenues you can go. One is if you're looking for a reduction under 25% of a reduction of assessment, you file what's called a small claims assessment review. And that is an informal hearing with a review officer and the assessor. No lawyers are needed. And it's set up that way because of the two major components to your property taxes, the assessor and the homeowner, the property owner. And the assessor's job is to put the value on the property, and the homeowner's or the property owner's job is to make sure that
To
it's
bring it
correct.
down.
Well, it's to
Mhm.
make sure it's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we're
So-
going to take a break. Hold that thought. If you'd like to join in on the conversation when we return, please give us a call back at Call us at 914-693-5700. You can tell it's Monday for me. 914-693-5700.
Please call us back right here. No, I mean, I know the hearing issue. I mean, but let's be real. Ma and Pa Kettle are not, they've never been in a courtroom. They have no idea the reality. So they hire a person who doesn't cost them anything unless they win. That's the niche. And I know a few people, someone saved me, and look, it's either you don't want to go to the process, you don't feel like doing it. It is unfamiliar to everybody.
Sure.
So have the person who goes every day, maybe on a first-name basis with the people in tax department. That's the reason.
And I know several people that have used those companies, and they love it. They can't
Oh,
wait to write. They can't wait to write the
I'm gonna
check.
go pro lawyer on that when we get back.
But they're not lawyers.
No, they're not. But I mean, I know three. I know O'Donnell. You know O'Donnell. He was the former tax assessor. I know a woman, Catherine. Very cool. I knew her family, a bunch of lawyers. She did that. New Rochelle. She lights up New Rochelle. She gives everybody money. That's cool.
They do have some crazy success rate of 80 some odd percent.
Oh yeah, because it's low hanging fruit. They're going where it's.
Well, like you said, their assessments are so old. They're indefensible.
And to a homeowner, it's no risk. I don't pay anything unless you win, and they get paid once. I think 50% one time.
First year savings.
Well, I mean,
On the commercial side, it's different.
I don't know that.
Then you need a lawyer, and you file that Article 7, which is a civil action.
Well, we talked about. I think that. I mean, it's not my advice, but I just think that people should consider using a lawyer because of the lack of familiarity with this process.
Or a service, right?
Or service, yeah. But, right. So we covered transactions. Did you want to go? Did you want to go back into any kind of in rem or?
Yeah, go into that because we went through all of our questions.
No, we're pretty good. We had a lot of time.
That's because you jumped right in. You're thinking I'm feeding you.
What was there to do? To relax? What could we do?
Well, I had a whole bunch of
Good,
fun facts that you just skipped right over.
Pop it back. Well, now, is that mill rate is how it's part of the assessment, right? Is that what you said?
They call it mill rate or the tax rate.
Okay. I'm old school, so I call it mill rate.
forces. Whatever loan products are licensed mortgage originators.
People have no idea why am I signing it. Remember the E&A used to be the
5217?
and it was the carbon paper.
They will get you the right mortgage for you. Call AndyMac Home
Do
Mortgage.
you have any?
15
Do
seconds.
you have any like the? You still use paper? No. Westchester uses the prep. You use the prep up there.
We still use, we fill out one form, and it gets entered into the clerk's office.
7,
We should with the property calendar too, because no one gets that.
2, 1.
And we're back. We're here in the studio of WFAS. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, we're talking about property tax with John Noto, and our number here is 914-693-5700. And Scott, you were talking
Yeah,
about...
I mean, John was very eloquent in explaining what I think is maybe an ideal way for those that are capable in handling this mini hearing. But for those that are completely unfamiliar with any kind of court proceeding or anyone with suits on, they may even be intimidated and say, look, an attorney or a service that provides that type of effort, it's easy. They don't pay them as far as I know. They're very familiar. They're in that type of scenario almost every day. They may be on a first name basis. It's just something I think for consumers to consider, because I'm pretty sure the cost is only present if that person or that service is successful. So to get just all sides of it, I mean, it's great if you can. And shout out to my sister-in-law Lucy that I think did it and was successful, but not everyone is as resolute as she is in getting it done. So it's a nice, I guess, exercise to outsource. We were moving towards one of the topics.
Well, what do you think about that, John? Do you think that they should...
Well, I always, when I was the director, I always had people come in asking, and I would walk them through the process, because it was a very important piece of the puzzle was to have the property owner do that, just to verify that they're being treated properly or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when they looked at it, when I'd walk them through it, they'd say, hey, that's pretty easy. The form is pretty straightforward. Especially if they have a recent sale or something, that's proof positive. So, you know, the threshold is the assessor's right unless you can prove them wrong.
Okay, so what's to be used? An appraisal or comps? I mean, is that what you...
Appraisal
what
is
you
good,
use?
but not specifically required. Some people will tell you that an appraisal can be, you know, made to prove a case.
Mhm.
But the market data that's out there, you can attach comparable sales from MLS, a multiple listing system.
How would an individual get that?
Well, if they would have to talk to a broker.
Right.
You know,
So
if they had,
that's kind of like a broker price opinion,
so, yes,
similar to that,
yeah, similar to that.
BPO?
Looking in through the assessor's records, which gets a little bit more complicated, and that's usually where people stop and they go to your service and they say,
Because I don't know all these numbers.
yeah,
on
I
a piece of
don't want to
paper.
deal with this. But there is merit in trying to do it yourself.
Sure.
Is
Is there any kind of, like, what if you try and fail? Are you stuck with that result? Could you then kind of hire a
no,
service?
your second choice is to file that small claims assessment review, which again is a pretty straightforward
Instead
form.
if it's under 25,000?
Yeah, under 25%. In other words,
25%.
the maximum reduction you can get is 25%.
And what if you seek more than 25%?
Then you would go towards what's called an Article 7 or a civil action.
Special proceeding?
Specifically for assessments.
Got it.
All
But
the
you also
article-
have a time frame that you have to do this
You do,
within,
yes,
right?
you have to, you file in most towns throughout New York, and you have to check with your individual municipality. The fourth Tuesday in May is when you file. By July 1st, you should have your answer, and you need to have your SCAR petition, your small claims assessment review petition filed at that time.
So now let's say I'm a homeowner and I go ahead and I do this myself
Mhm.
and I'm denied and it's July 1st. Can I now hire a service or I have to wait until the next year?
At that point, you could, but it's going to be harder to pick up a service at that point to do it, because they've typically, the ones I've seen do hundreds and hundreds, and they do it from the front end all the way through.
Okay.
So at that point, sometimes appraisers will do that. When we had the appraisal business, we filed several just based on the appraisal fee, and we would fill out the form because it was that easy to do,
Mhm.
and we would submit it in with the the comparable sales.
Right. You knew
And so
exactly what
forth.
you were doing and
Right,
you had
and
the whole process
and at that point, we
involved.
also were able to tell a homeowner, look, you have a clear-cut case, and we'll file this for you, and we would charge just a flat fee. And if you didn't, we would be able to explain to you why you're either fairly assessed or you're
Unfairly assessed.
or you have a benefit of being
Mhm.
under-assessed, so to speak.
Ah, under assessed
sure.
is even better. All right.
At closings, at transactions, I've experienced title company. I mean, title company taking the taxes and even more if they were yet unknown. Would you describe that process, and why is the title company even involved in taking taxes sometime in the near future once a closing occurs? Why are they involved, and what's the maximum? Let's say if a school tax was $1,000 in the last lien year, what could possibly happen from there?
Well, that's regulated by the RESPA Act, and they're allowed to, by law, keep 17.5% as a buffer of taxes. So, at any time when they make a disbursement of your school tax or a disbursement of your town and county tax, they have this, up to 17.5% buffer in case the taxes have had an increase. So they're always protected that the taxes are satisfied, so you're not falling into that delinquency, or with the title company having to pay the bill and be short, because you cannot partial pay a tax. Otherwise,
Right,
they'll kick it back to you, and you'll get hit with interest and penalties, and they're significant.
And what if it's 10% more? And what happens at the 7.5%?
Well, it's up to 17.5%. So they could, if their requirement is 10%, that's as a buffer, that's fine. But they just can't exceed the 17.5%.
People don't know, and I've told clients I've been around transactions, that there's really 3 treatments of taxes at a closing. One is if there's escrows, of course. 2 is if the taxes come up with what's in ballpark number 60 days in the future. You have to pick up, so to speak, I should say, collect the sums for the next upcoming taxes. And the third, which people don't know about, is the adjustment between the parties. What if we're closing on August 1st and on July 1st, the seller paid for the next bunch of years? People don't realize, wait, I'm paying, and then I'm paying, and then I'm paying again. That's because the seller had paid. They got to be reimbursed.
Right.
There has to be an adjustment made.
There has to be between the parties, and any tax that's due and upcoming soon can't be a lien. Am I correct? I mean, otherwise they'd be in open. What is that number? If it's open taxes.
Yeah, delinquent tax, right?
Is that that's a lien, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be satisfied.
Yeah, technically the lien is as soon as the tax levying body puts out the tax bill. As soon as the tax levying body approves it in a legislative session, it becomes a lien on the property. So interesting, it's not just when you get the tax bill. If you look in the top of the tax bill, it'll tell you what the warrant date is and the lien date. And that's when it technically becomes a lien.
So how can homeowners get away without paying property taxes?
Unless they're legally
That's a good
wholly,
question, Scott.
unless they're legally wholly
That's what our audience really
Yeah.
wants to know. How
So-
can they get away with paying nothing on their own? Is that a way? I mean, is there a way? I know a firm, Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. Is that possible?
Yeah, no, they went out of business.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no way around the property tax.
You guys looked at me like, oh, is this guy nuts?
Well, it is a good question, though, because there are a lot
Somebody
of
out there
homeowners
wants to
that
know.
have not paid property taxes for a number of years and have not been foreclosed on yet. Why is that? How fast do they go after that?
Well, the law requires the municipality to go into an in rem proceeding.
What does
24
in rem mean?
months.
Does that
In
mean the
rem
thing?
means against the property.
Oh.
It means it's like a foreclosure, but
Latin.
against
I didn't know you
taxes.
spoke Latin. I'm
Yeah.
impressed.
Yep, thanks. That's about it too. But yeah, so it's against the property. It's a tax, a property tax action, and
What kind of? I guess you get notice requirements like any foreclosure, and then they ultimately
oh,
have
you'll
to.
get multiple notices before
So now, if the
that happens.
homeowner's paying the taxes themselves,
Mhm.
and this happens, typically the bank will pick up the tax payment just to protect the property, correct?
The bank will.
And then it would be the bank that would have to go after the homeowner.
So the mechanics would be like this. So each municipality will hire a title company to do a limited scope search.
Mhm.
And they'll search out who the lien holders are. So they'll pick up that lender if it's a non-escrow loan.
Mhm.
And then that lender, as a lien holder, will get notice that there is delinquent taxes so that they can protect their interest in the property. So, at that point, the bank can come in and pay the tax and either foreclose on the homeowner for violation of their contractual obligation or put them into an escrow program, which
And then-
is
right, and then I think they notify them and say, look, the taxes were $2,400, so it's $200 a month more.
Right.
Get them on board.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
And how long does that process typically take? I think that was really a question. How can I do this and get away with it? Because that's is what has been happening
Mhm.
with all of the foreclosures now, because there were so many.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that again, with the banks, the bank to go out and look to see that taxes are paid, that's a different service. And typically, a good lender or a larger lender is going to be pretty on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
because they could be holding a huge portfolio of loans that if they're not doing that, and they have several that are that are tax delinquent, then they'd have to make a real hard business decision whether they pay it and
Mhm.
protect their interest or let them go. And in different parts of the country with different values on homes, it could be a different decision in each area. Here, again, like we were talking before,
Mhm.
we have such tremendous value in our real estate. It typically behooves them to pay the tax before the county does. And again, what we talked about at one point before we went on the air was when the municipality does foreclose and the taxes on the property are $50,000, but the value of the property is $500,000, the municipality keeps that money, the excess money.
I'm sure the public thinks that that's a negative windfall. That really, yes, I might owe that tax, but I certainly have all this value which I've accrued since 1979. I mean, could you explain the rationale to a home buyer, maybe as a warning to say, look, if you don't pay that, you could lose that hard fought for equity? What's the rationale?
So all the lien holders in that in rem proceeding, all the lien holders are notified, and if they don't step forward to protect their interest, that once the deed is filed, the tax deed, that wipes them out.
Mm-hmm.
So now they might have had a couple $100,000 of interest, and they've been wiped out. And if the homeowner is allowed to take the excess over that $50,000, well, they just got away without paying those other lien holders.
Okay, what about I understand. So other lien holders like a lender, even judgment creditors,
Contractors,
everybody, yeah,
sure.
like a
For
mechanics
anyone who has a
lien.
lien on
Got
it.
it. So they get wiped out. So I understand. That makes sense to me. But what if there is no loan? What if the only lien is those, or the only lien?
The
is
only
single?
lien is the tax.
Yes. Then why? I mean, you gave me a great answer. Why would I not just, if I'm the homeowner? Yes, I've been delinquent, derelict, and we had a terrible, recession and sickness and so on. I understand I pay my debt with penalties, but why would I lose the equity?
Yeah, those are terrible circumstances, and they do happen. One was in Long Island where I think it was almost $500,000 that was what you would consider a windfall towards the county. And the philosophy is that with the lien enforcement activity, the expense of it is very high. And, to enforce the liens and reimburse the municipalities, they have to bond the money so that they have the money to give to the school or give to the municipality. And in Westchester, it's the township that's reimbursing the county and the school, so they have to bond for that. And
When you
there's a
say
cost
bond,
to
I'm
it.
sorry to interrupt. When you say bond, does it usually mean pay 10% for that bond?
No,
It's a surety bond?
if all the delinquent taxes in the municipality are $5 million, then they'll put a tax anticipation note of $5 million bond.
So it's an overall.
It's an overall. It's not a
Right.
home by home.
And then
I
that way
misunderstood.
they have the money to make the other, the in this case, the county and the school district whole, and they would recover that over time through the lien enforcement,
So the
of selling
rationale
those
is that
homes.
they lose on some and they gain on others.
Exactly right.
Hmm.
And where
That's
it's-
very
So that's a real
unfortunate.
disparate treatment, for different people. But that's interesting. Look, I mean, that's why I know that in mortgage loan or underwriting programs or requirements, the tax is such a big thing. It affects affordability so much. People, I know Tim lives in Greenwich where they're far less. I know that the Bronx, our neighbor to the south, is so much less. Even Eastern Long Island, I know that's so much less because they don't have big police or sewers or lights or garbage.
Mhm.
So I guess you get a lot more. Do we get some luxury services in Westchester? I don't know.
Well, it's just different services.
Hmm.
Different than the boroughs.
Certainly, yeah.
Much different.
So-
We are talking about property tax. We have John Noto here as our guest, Scott Borsino as our co-host. And if you would like to join in on the conversation, please give us a call at 914-693-5700. Again, that's 914-693-5700.
Have you ever been disappointed because something you planned went wrong at the last moment? Doesn't that make you
This is more
really
fun.